That doesn't make sense to me. Whether it's the WHO or any other institution you say has failings, has imperfections. Of course, it reflects the imperfections of the world. The United Nations is not some intergalactic organization. It represents all of the human frailties that are known to mankind exist in the heart of the United Nations. It's not united. It often makes mistakes, often says things we don't agree with. 193 countries. Why would we think that we would always be in agreement with everything that they do? But I can sit next to the ambassador for Saudi Arabia and have a very different opinion. He's still there representing his government. I have to represent my government. I don't just walk away and say, well, I'm never going to talk to you again. We have to engage. And at the same time as we have to be clear about our own principles and about our own values. It's no different from any other politics I've ever practiced.
So that's former interim Liberal leader and former NDP Premier of Ontario, Bob Rae. He is Canada's new ambassador to the United Nations. You just heard his musings about the very real issues facing that organization. So what does his appointment indicate about what the government is hoping to accomplish at the United Nations? Let's bring in the power panel on that. Melissa Lantsman, Yolande James, and Brad Levine. And Brad, I want to start with you. This is now the second former leader of the Ontario NDP to get this job, so that's clearly the path to the UN. What do you make of Bob Rae's appointment to this role?
And you're speaking, of course, of Stephen Lewis in the past there. Mr. Brian Mulroney appointed him in the 80s, I believe. The things you learn on the power panel, very good. I hope this is an opportunity for Canada to have a more coherent voice on the world stage. You heard Mr. Rae talk about how we have to go there to articulate the goals and values, and I think that. I think it's a wonderful opportunity here to kind of almost reboot and establish what is Canada's place on the world stage. I think that we've been adrift for a spell of time, and in particular the last 5 or so years. At least before that, while I opposed what Mr. Harper wanted to do on the world stage, at least it was rather coherent and consistently delivered. Whereas today, and even after, I'm not just referring to the Security Council seat, that was, I think, a poor campaign. But in terms of Canada as a peacekeeper, where are we? In terms of Canada as a multilateral or even a bilateral foreign aid player. I don't know if we've gone adrift, and perhaps Mr. Rae's appointment is an opportunity for a re-articulation or a clarifying articulation of Canada's place on the world stage.
Yolande, do you think Bob Rae's appointment could mean a reorientation of how Canada approaches this, or does he continue with the foreign policy that exists, such as it is?
Well, based on what he said, it's a continuation of the work that was started by Marc-André Blanchard. But I think to his appointment, first of all, David, I would say that in a very polarized political climate, oftentimes it's hard to see. It's more so rare to see appointments that are applauded across party lines. I'm sure some people were critical of Bob Rae's appointment today, but they are certainly in the minority. And I think that in of itself is a message there, to have an appointment of that caliber with his experience and wisdom and past of public servants. It shows to me that there is a commitment there to continue to have a strong voice in an imperfect United Nations, but committed to making sure Canada's voice is not only heard and that we're able to do more and better in terms of our influence, because so much has been made about the fact that we did lose the Security Council seat.
Melissa, it does seem to be a reasonably popular appointment. A lot of praise for Mr. Rae. People seem to like him, even if they don't agree with him on everything. What's your reaction to the appointment?
Well, I'm too young to have remembered the Rae days, so I'm on the side of applauding the appointment for Mr. Rae. 71, still serving his country. The question really is, I think, the pundit class and for particularly for those who still see value in the UN, is what disappointment would have happened if they won the UN Security Council seat. And I'm not sure what the answer is. I think that many would say no, and that speaks to the Liberals' engagement or re-engagement in the UN as a vehicle to be something in the world. There's no question that Canada does good things in the world. The question only is, are they better than they were in 2000? Are they better than they were in 2005, 2010, and frankly 2015? And are they better than who they lost that Security Council seat, the Norwegians or Ireland? And the answer is no. I actually look forward to seeing Bob Rae because I think he holds some of the positions that are much closer aligned to Mr. Harper, particularly on Israel, than they are with Mr. Trudeau. So let's see what he does.
But, he's there to do Mr. Trudeau's bidding, as Mr. Trudeau's appointment, as you say, right? So, what can we draw from this? What indications can we take from this about what they hope to achieve there? He has done work on humanitarian issues with the Rohingya, Special Envoy to Myanmar. So, Melissa, you may say he may be closer to Harper on things, but he does work for Mr. Trudeau.
He does work for Mr. Trudeau, and I think that a UN ambassador is there to carry out the wishes of the government. And if he doesn't agree with the government's foreign policy, or if the government's foreign policy doesn't change in a way that is going to strengthen the UN or strengthen Canada's position on the world stage, then it doesn't really matter who's at the UN. They're it's just a bit more of the same, and sort of shrugging their shoulders about why they would have lost this Security Council seat, if in fact, because they made a political decision to try to win it.
Okay, quick final thoughts from Yolande and then Brad, because I've got to go to a public health briefing in British Columbia. So Yolande, just wrap it up.
Well, I just think it's important to reiterate the role that and the significant role that I'm convinced Bob Rae will play with respect to Canada's influence, and remembering that diplomacy is about relationships, building relationships, and you lose nothing by not being at the table, even though the organization, as everybody can recognize, it certainly is not perfect and it needs improvement. And I'm sure that he's going to be an important addition in making sure that that's the case.
Okay, Brad, a final thought, and then we got to say goodbye.
Also, good opportunity for strengthening the institutions of the UN as the World Health Organization with the global pandemic, climate change. There's a lot of big issues facing the planet in the coming years. So this is a real opportunity for Canada to step up.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.